A dash of mystery, a sparkle of magic, and all things cozy. Join your host, Elle Hartford, for Cozy Alchemy, a proud member of the Authors on the Air network. Okay, are you ready? Are you gonna do it? All right, go for it.
Hi everyone, I'm Jorgen Morgan Hoon, and I'm here with Elle Hartford, author of Killing Demons under her pen name T.A. Page. How are you doing today, Elle?
I am doing very well, thank you, and happy April Fool's Day.
Yeah, happy April Fool's Day. Oh wait, I'm a
So,
cat.
just as a note for our listeners, obviously, normally this is my podcast, and I am the host. But today we thought we'd do something a little bit fun to switch things up. So, do you want to be outed as my husband, Mr.
What do you
Hugh?
mean? I'm a cat.
Well, my partner in the studio here is going to interview me. And especially because, so I do write books as Elle, but I also do have relatively recent release under the pen name T.A. Page, which is a little bit darker than what we usually cover on the podcast, but should make for an interesting discussion.
Yeah, so just give me a minute. My wife's in the other room making a terrible amount of noise. Hold on.
Oh dear.
Okay, there we go. I told her to pipe down. So let's start off the show with a fun game. Do you want to play Two Truths and a Lie?
Well, I figure it's only fair because I make all of my guests do this. And in the spirit of fun and behind the scenes, I will tell everybody um, two truths and a lie is the one thing that tends to trip up my guests. And I feel kind of bad because when I started this podcast, I thought, oh, this is going to be great. This will be just a fun icebreaker. It'll help us be very natural in conversation. And we're all authors, so we can just come up with stuff, right? But it is routinely the thing that when I meet with the guests in the, behind the scenes before the episode starts, they're like, oh, shoot, okay, I gotta write them down. I gotta, So it's only fair that I be in the hot seat, I think. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah. So let's hear them.
Okay. The funny thing is, I actually didn't prepare anything ahead of time. So let's
Uh,
think off the top of my head. My two truths and a lie. Uh, I have four stuffed animals on my desk. I just got back from walking dogs, which is my very fun part-time side gig. And I have lived in, let's see, four different states and two different countries.
well, I think I'm at an advantage here because I know, knowing you, I think you have more than four stuffed animals on your desk. So I'm thinking that's the lie.
That's your guess.
Yep.
It is the lie. But technically I only have three at the moment, so that's why it's the
Ah,
lie. You've overestimated. But
well,
I
I
do
know
have,
throughout the
yeah.
house there's more.
Yes. There's more waiting in the wings. They just contribute to the cozy environment.
Of course, of course. So, can you tell us a little bit about Killing Demons?
Yes. Okay. So as I said, this came out in December, and it is under the pen name T.A. Page. And we can talk about why I use that in a little bit. I think that'll probably come up. But the story itself, it is a dark fantasy epistolary novel. So it is told in a series of documents, letters, court transcripts, songs, even, and it's fantasy, and it's set in a very like early sort of primitive culture, so there's not a ton of people know how to write. So there is some kind of like fudging. There's some magically collected epistolary items. Um, but basically, it follows several characters who are trying to fight for their country and are trying to, you know, bring themselves peace, stop all the different invasions that are going on. And one character in particular, Midnight, who is a demon who is not interested in peace at all. I think I'll leave it there.
Oh boy. So I'm actually a big fan of the epistolary novel. Don't mind me as I bathe. But the epistolary novel, why did you pick that choice? I mean, Montesquieu's Persian letters, this rich tradition of epistolary novel that emerges in the Enlightenment. What brought that about?
I will two notes to clarify. First, for our audio only listeners, in the video, if you find that on YouTube or on Substack, it is in fact our cat is
What do you mean?
interviewing me. Yeah,
I am a cat.
yeah, and he's having a grand time.
Hi.
And other note, clarification note, I'm sure all listeners will have noticed. My interviewer is a big history buff.
One could say.
And yeah, one could even say that's how we met. So I am a bit of a history nerd as well. I know that's come up on the podcast before. So I was aware, like when I started writing my epistolary novel, I knew that it does have this really cool. It has a really cool lineage and history, and it's a form of novel that's been around for a long time. But nonetheless, it is unusual, right? And it's a little difficult maybe to get into, especially if you've never read one before. But actually, I wasn't necessarily thinking of the Persian letters. I was thinking especially of a lot of the early detective novels are presented as epistolary novels, like Wilkie Collins' The Moonstone is a
Yeah,
classic.
Moonstone.
So cool. I know you have. My interviewer does not believe in fiction. He only reads nonfiction, usually of a historical bent. But nonetheless, I find Wilkie Collins' books, all of them. The Moonstone is probably the most famous one, but all of his works are really cool. And Killing Demons isn't necessarily it's not at all a detective story. It's a fantasy, very epic in nature. But it does have that kind of element of mystery, and I really wanted to play with this idea of a story that's told in multiple voices, and the reader kind of having to figure out as they go along, like, who is telling the truth, who thinks they're telling the truth but is actually, kind of bamboozled by their own worldview, and who is bending things to fit their worldview or to convince somebody else of a particular worldview.
Okay, I like it. Yeah, and I think it's interesting because you can pull in and in Killing Demons, it's not just epistolary, it's not just letter based. You have so many different formats of documents.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah, so you get multiple voices. Sorry, I'm distracted here by a cuddly plush.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Again, we have lots of those in the house. Oh.
So, getting back to it, this is Killing Demons. It's a little darker than the cozy stuff you normally write. Why write something so dark?
Okay, cool. I love this question because it's something that I think about a lot, and especially was on my mind a lot at the beginning of the year and like the end of last year, and as Killing Demons was coming out. Also, we talk kind of allude to every once in a while everything going on in the world. The world doesn't necessarily feel like a cozy place these days. So these are the things that I think about just on a daily basis as an author. And Killing Demons is a project that I've been working on for, I think at this point, 10, 11 years. It's been in the works a long time, like longer than I've been writing cozy fiction, honestly.
I remember
Um,
first meeting you and you were working on it at
right?
that
Yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's been around. And it was kind of waiting in the wings when I decided to try my hand at publishing and specifically publishing cozy things. Um, and it's hard, like, especially as I was gearing up to publish Killing Demons and kind of talking about it more. Like, it has its own Substack called A Demon Alone. Um, so as I was, writing a lot about it, I was thinking a lot about, you what's the merit? What is the reason? Why write something dark versus why write something light or cozy? Especially when both, but especially cozy, like tends to get looked down on in like a highbrow literature sort of way. There tends to be a little bit of a stigma against any sort of like light or romantic or fun reading. Is it really a classic book if not everybody dies, or that sort of thing. um and the only thing I can come to, obviously I haven't come to a good short pithy answer. um
Clearly.
I know. But the only thing I can think of just for myself is that I believe really strongly in the merits, the worth, the purpose of cozy fiction, be it cozy mystery, cozy fantasy, cozy romance, anything. I believe so strongly in that and in its ability to, comfort us, also to give us hope and like show us how things can work out and like things don't have to be terrible and not everybody has to die at the end. I mean, aside from possibly like actual physical reality of eventually people do die, but at the same time, Killing Demons, working on that was really helpful for me as I was working through some of my own issues and like dealings with depression and stuff like that. So all I can say at the end of the day is that they both have a lot of value. And maybe it just depends on what your mood and what you need in that moment.
Interesting. Nice. And so you mentioned how this has been a long project for you. You've been working on this for as long as I've known you. You've kind of had this
Mm-hmm.
on the back burner. How did you come up with the world in this book?
Uh, okay.
Because it's a little different.
It is. Yeah, it's a little different. So those who know my books as Elle, all of my Alchemical Tales and things, those are all set in I have several spin-off series, but they're all set in one world, and it's like a fairy tale world where there's a lot of different magic that coexists all together, and it's very fun and like a big sandbox where a lot of things can happen. Killing Demons is different. It's in a completely different world. Like I said at the beginning, it's fairly primitive. It was actually loosely inspired by, say, like Iron Age Scotland. So we're talking like very limited technology. Again, like very, very, I fudged some things, but very few characters are literate. And which is a bit of a fudge that they're literate at all, but uh, so it came out of my own interest in historical settings and in archaeology and history, which is of course my previous career. Um, but at the same time, I was playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14, which
Ah,
I think that has come up possibly on the podcast before. Is It's the one video game that I got myself sucked into, and I so there are obviously fantasy elements in Killing Demons, kind of influenced a little bit by um my experience of like exploring a open world fantasy game and just the fun ways that that gets um, reflected in like the characters' lives. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think old school RuneScape is a better example or a better game to play, maybe. But
Oh,
each to
of
his own.
course. Yeah.
So, you've put a lot of work and thought into this over a long period of time, even before you were
Mm,
in writing, as a profession.
mm.
Do you think you got out of it what you wanted?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, and because, like I said, working on this project, it got me through some pretty dark times. And I know, of course, this is a cozy podcast, but we've had authors here talk like a lot of our personal struggles do get reflected in our writing, and I've been very lucky. A lot of my very wonderful guests have been brave and not shied away from that. So in the same spirit, uh, yes and no. So the one of the main characters in the book, the demon, she has, I won't spoil too much, but she has a couple different names, but she goes by Midnight. Anyway, so Midnight uh, deals with a lot of. Uh, she deals with a lot of rejection, and she deals honestly with a lot of self hatred, and frustration, and depression. Um, and in one way, seeing, and this is a book that like I was writing, for me, for honestly, like 90% of its journey. Like I knew that this was weird. I knew like it was a lot of just like me getting feelings out. Um and it wasn't until like, the past year or so, and I've been publishing and I know how it goes, and I was like, okay, I could make this into a really nice book, and learn even more about publishing as I do it. And so I took on that challenge. But that's been just recent. And then to see it go through that journey, and then to see Midnight and the other characters in the book like out in the world, like to see that book then published, in one way it does give me some, in one way I do get something out of that. I do get like a sort of closure, or like release of like these characters have been very close companions of mine for a very long time, and now I get to like see them off into the world. So in one way, yes. But in the other way, these are issues that we all like, the thing about healing, right? That we all hear, or, or you hear if you're in the healing space. um, there's a common idea that like healing isn't linear. It's not like, okay, I've had this trauma, I've dealt with it, now I'm done. Now it's up and up and up and up, always better. Healing is a little bit more cyclical, or kind of like a spiral is how I like to think of it. So I'm sure that some of the things that I wrote about in this book will come back up for me in the future. Um, so they're not necessarily gone or done or closed, but I have definitely grown and can deal with them differently.
Yeah. So interesting. Yeah, there's kind of like two sides to everything. And
Mm.
in terms, you were talking about your publishing. So how do you handle or balance these two pen names that you have that are two very
Uh,
different genres, different kind of personalities, right?
yeah, yeah. And it's so funny. I was just doing I ran a workshop last night for self-publishing, and this question came up of like, because I was kind of scaring these poor workshop participants a little bit and telling them, like, okay, every author, self-published, traditionally published, doesn't matter. You're gonna be doing a lot of your marketing, and it is scary, and you don't know what's gonna work right off the bat. Um, and then yeah, if you've got a pen name, you've got to do it all twice. But for me, my primary focus is being Elle and having my cozy books, and that brings me a lot of joy. And like I said, I have a lot of purpose in it. So that's where most of my focus is. And then having this pen name, T.A. Page, there's actually two books now to that pen name. That they're both like side projects that I know are like a little funky and like darker, obviously, um, and more experimental. And so in my mind, I've approached it very methodically of like, learn things and try new things with both pen names, but I also like segregate my efforts. Um, so like TA Page, that pen name's been around a while, and it was like it, for example, it was on Twitter way back when it was Twitter, whereas with Elle, I've pretty much always stuck to like Instagram and Facebook. So like, part of it's knowing who the audience is for your pen name, and like diversifying your efforts so that you're not maintaining an Instagram for both pen names necessarily, especially if you're not super excited to be on Instagram in the first place.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm distracted. I'm having a little snack between.
Very good. Yes. It's very cozy of you.
Yeah, yeah, treats and everything. So, you've got these kind of two personalities. You've got Jekyll and Hyde going on. You've got 47 books out.
I do not
You've
have
got a,
47.
yeah, oh, sorry, 48 maybe.
uh,
You've got a darling cat, a lovely tortoise, and a handsome husband. So what's next for Elle Hartford, T.A. Page, and all of her personas?
First of all, it's funny. Like the Jekyll and Hyde thing is kind of what I was like trying to avoid. It's why I get a little bit weird about talking about my pen name or TA Page. Um, it's weird. Like I don't. It's because Jekyll and Hyde is something that we use when something's wrong, right?
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with investigating the darker works and having that other side. I think a lot of authors do, honestly, but some of them get told to focus one way or the other by a publisher, or some of them do have pen names and blah blah blah. Anyway, what is next? I am hard at work on the next Alchemical Tales novel. That is going to be book 10 in that series, which is a little hard to believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is fun because it is a mashup. So, for those who are unaware, each Alchemical Tales novel is a cozy mystery, but it's also a retold fairy tale. So like the first one, for example, is Beauty and the Beast, and then we have Snow White, and then Little Mermaid, all with murder thrown in, which is a lot easier than you might think it would otherwise be, because fairy tales are kind of brutal.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, book 10, it is a mashup of different like Goose Girl type fairy tales. So these are
Goose
fairy
Girl.
tales. Yeah, the Goose Girl is maybe a slightly more obscure fairy tale, a little bit. Like Disney didn't make a movie of it, but it's fairy
Yeah.
tales where the main character um gets deposed or like cursed or like turned into an animal, like Princess and the Frog, like turned into a frog and sent off. um there's a lot of different fairy tales where that happens to a person. And so this is kind of a roundup of them, which is very fun. I do have, because I was working on it forever and ever, I do have a couple different sequels that come after Killing Demons. Uh, I don't necessarily have a plan, like I don't have a schedule or anything right now for publishing those, but that's always an option in the future too.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
And we know you're good at keeping yourself busy.
I do my best.
Yeah. Too busy almost.
One might
Um,
say.
yeah. So I guess to wrap things up, what's some advice you'd give to yourself now that
Oh
you've
gosh.
gotten 29 books? And
I've not gotten to it. So everyone, this is a recurring tease. Although, gosh, 29. Maybe I do. I'm not sure. There's a few. Advice that I would give to myself when I was just starting out. I love hearing people's answer to this question. Um, and a lot of people will say some version of, like trust yourself, trust the process, which I think is really valid and definitely something that writers need to hear, or anyone needs to hear. Um, I think I would say that, but also at the same time, lay off yourself a little bit.
Oh.
Cause, and I know you'll appreciate this. It's one of the things I've been working through, like I was talking a little bit about with Midnight and Killing Demons. It has been an ongoing journey for me, and I'm just kind of getting to the point now where I see how much of um like a lot of my feel like a lot of feelings of doubt or even unworthiness, and that sort of thing. A lot of that gets caused by perfectionism, right?
Mm.
Which sounds silly to say, but it's something that it can get so ingrained that you don't realize it. um and so I definitely for a long time struggled with like really intense perfectionism. um and it just didn't even occur to me, to relax a little. That's been a tough journey. So if I could nudge myself just a little in that direction, that would help. Just be like, hey, it's okay. It's okay to be a little nice to yourself sometimes.
Yeah, these answers may be used against you in the court of the house.
Yeah,
So we
I
will remember
figured.
that.
I
And
figured.
I guess the final question we have to close things out is what's one win you've had in this past week?
Ooh, okay. This is a fun one. And it's ironically, it's kind of hard because for those who do follow me on Instagram, you'll notice that I do try and post every Friday. So obviously, every podcast, I ask people for good news. And every Friday, I try and post some good news. And we're recording on a Friday. So I've already been trying to think about this. Um, but I am going to say, I'll say something different than what I intend to post later. I will say that my win for the week is the fact that, it's been a really busy week. We've had a lot going on. But tonight we get to have date night and go see the Mikado.
Oh, the Mikado, that's my favorite. How, what a coincidence.
I know. Funny how that works.
Well, I'm actually seeing the Mikado as well. Um,
Well, maybe I'll bump into you there.
yeah, let's hope. Well, or T.A. Page, Elle Hartford, thanks for taking some time. I've got a licky treat with my name on it that I need to get to. And so I hope you enjoy the Mikado tonight.
Thank you very much. And thank you for interviewing me and letting me ramble.
Oh, thanks for being on the show.
All right. And for all you listeners out there, again, happy April Fool's Day. And I will talk to you next time.
Bye.
Cozy Alchemy is brought to you by Authors on the Air, and our theme music is by Cyberwave Orchestra. For everything else, blame Elle. You can find her online at ellehartford.com.